Hi everyone, Marcon Code here for a 55th and brand new episode of our special edition, Lore of the Universal Century. Today we're going back again to the 1 Year War era in an attempt to answer a particular question, which is... Yep, in this video we are going to explore the history of Zeon Street Fighter Wonder Weapon, its mechanical lore, variants, and extract every bit of mechanical knowledge we have on them so far. Let's start by the beginning. What is exactly the Dolmel? Codenamed MS-19, the Dolmel was a prototype close-range heavy assault mobile suit, developed by the Principality of Zeon in the very later stages of the 1 Year War. A phantom machine developed in absolute secret by the Abawaku Arsenal, the Dolmel was a high-performance mobile suit shrouded in total mystery, being designed to serve as an area dominance wonder weapon, created to be unleashed for the final battle looming to take place near its own manufacturing facility. Indeed, the Dolmel was a nightmarish mobile suit even by late 1 Year War standards, boosting basic performance eclipsing most high-end machines on both sides of the conflict, with the Dolmel raw acceleration being nearly 80% higher than the one featured in the Gelgog high mobility type, while its generator instead exceeded such Gelgog by non-neglectable 240 kilowatts. This massive leap in performance, far enough if not completely sufficient to make the Dolmel fully capable of going toe-to-toe with any of the more recent Gundam types, thus made the MS-19 not just a regular high-end Zeon design, but potentially one, if not its highest performing mobile suit, only outclassed by new Tapus exclusive machines such as the Zeong, also developed at the Abawaku Arsenal. This raw performance, although commendable in its own right, was however not the Dolmel's most notable and important design asset, with that place being reserved to its comprehensive inbuilt arsenal, meant for absolute close-range superiority. The Dolmel first introduced a pair of inbuilt beam assets in both its forearms, the multi-launchers, weapons which could function as rapid-firing beam guns or wrist beam blades when stored in the arms, or even be detached to instead serve as handled beam sabers, giving the Dolmel both mid and close-range assets. From weird mechanics seen in the X-Review games, it also seems the Dolmel multi-launchers were also able to somewhat shape a weird beamform called the Mega Slash, to then fire it as a shift-crashing attack, enabling the Dolmel to easily overwhelm most opponents through this impressive gimmick. For more close combat-oriented fights, the Dolmel could instead rely on weapons directly integrated in its own armor frame. First, hittable spikes called the hit piles in both its shoulders to ram the enemy while causing devastating damage, but also sneaky toe emitters, enabling the Dolmel to impale enemy mobile suits with fit-placed beam blades right after kicking them. Finally, the Dolmel could also rely on a fair amount of missile weapons, with the unit mounting two different pairs of launchers, two mounted in its shoulders and two smaller 5-tubes launchers instead placed in the lower chest, thus giving the Dolmel powerful missile volley capabilities for such a close-range specialized model. Now, all this arsenal and raw performance could make the Dolmel look like an infallible suit, a true wonder weapon, which would actually be quite far from the truth. First of all, the Dolmel's impressive high-end design was, as expected, not just extremely expensive, but also quite long to produce and concretize, grounding the mobile suit to the prototype stage, while also ensuring its introduction into war to kick off far too late, with the Dolmel only sorting for the first time during the Battle of Abawaku. But more on that later. Secondly, the comprehensive arsenal of the Dolmel, while ensuring its superiority in mid and close-range combat, was fairly inadequate for long-range space warfare, with the Dolmel not even coming with its own physical weapon or beam rifle, instead just sometimes reusing the traditional dumb bazooka or relying on its multi-launchers to engage targets from afar. This problem was not only due to negligence, but, much like the Gyan, also due to concept flaws and input from pilots involved in the Dolmel development, severely hampering the mobile suit. Nonetheless, the Dolmel would still prove to be an impressive and remarkable machine, and although its public existence would be lost to time for nearly a decade and a half, the Phantom mobile suit would still manage to spawn a short but significant legacy, ensuring its relevance in the immediate years after the Great War. But that's enough setting for today, let's get to our lore. The year is December UC-79. At that time, the infamous 1 Year War was reaching its final and most decisive stage, the Principality of Zeon pushed out of Earth following its defeat at the Battle of Odessa, preparing for the massive Earth Federation counterattack coming in space. With the front line finally moving back to space, so did arise the need for higher performance space-use mobile suits, the Principality of Zion rushing most of its pre-existing development projects, such as the MS-11, Galgok development plan or United maintenance plan for emergency results, while commissioning many more in the wake of such urgency. Among such new development projects that arose in extremis near early December was a particular, if not very mysterious development plan, kickstarted in secret by the infamous Abawaku's arsenal, with the explicit goal of creating a high-performance area-dominant mobile suit to use for the looming decisive space battles coming ahead. What exactly mobile suit for decisive space battles entails is not completely certain, but from all the info collected, it seems the project primarily aimed to develop a new type of high-performance mobile suit, a machine combining versatility, state-of-the-art engineering and raw performance, specially designed to turn the tides of the well-foreseen large-scale decisive space battle that the Principality and Federation forces both knew to be unavoidable. First an arm wrestling to see which of them would gain or keep control of the Solomon Space Fortress, and then either a massive battle on the outskirts of Abawaku, or instead over Zion's Granada arsenal. The idea was thus to create an incredibly advanced mobile suit, capable of filling the area dominance role usually taken over by one-of-a-kind mobile armors, which could be used as a game-changing asset for these battles Zion absolutely needed to win, a tactical battery ram to cause massive enemy casualties around Solomon or Abawaku or Granada, and keep the enemy at bay with such a single unit acting as a frontline buffer. To fill this extremely ambitious role, the project quickly ditched the idea of making such a mobile suit an extension of pre-existing mobile suit series, designing instead the machine from the ground up as a brand new model, the MS-19 Dolmel. Through its model number, we know the Dolmel was one of the last, if not the last model, that Zion would have the time to design or approve during its existence during the 1-year war, closely following the Garibaldi Alpha and Kempfer, respectively finalized by the Pezun Arsenal and Granada factory around the same period. Unlike these other two models, the Dolmel was however kept as secret as possible, with the project silently continuing its work deep in the factories of the Abawaku Space Fortress. Although the closer details of the project remain a mystery to this day, it is known that the designing team was at some point reinforced by the arrival of 2nd Lieutenant Ramuiko Stein, an ex-pilot who quickly became involved in the Dolmel development project. A mobile suit piloting prodigy, mainly specializing in close-range combat, Stein was also allegedly a native of Abawaku itself, being born on the asteroid long before it was turned into a space fortress by the Principality of Zion. Funnily enough, Ramuiko Stein is also famous for sharing the same exact normal suit than Simagara, which, coupled with the fact that the Galgok Marine is sometimes said to have been produced by the Abawaku Arsenal, alongside other sources pointing that the Granada Marines weren't the only Marine Corps unit to exist in the Principality of Zion, have led to a widespread theory that Stein could have been the leading officer of Abawaku's own Marine amphibious unit. Of course, those remain mostly speculations, but I think it's insightful enough to keep in mind. In any case, Ramuiko Stein would then quickly mold the future of the Dolmel development, not only quickly being assigned as his test and future pilot, but also influencing the design to emphasize tech traits that she particularly found desirable, hence why the Dolmel put such a heavy emphasis on close-range combat. Nonetheless, X-Review in-game dialogues also seems to point that Ramuiko wasn't particularly familiar with the Dolmel itself prior to her first sortie during the Battle of Abawaku, which could point to the fact that Ramuiko intruded in the project but wasn't particularly leading or ruining the design stage like Makuve did with the Gyan, for example. With Ramuiko's help, the Dolmel development project slowly went ahead, although continuous delays eventually kept it from being completed, with the model being still in development by the time of the Battle of Solomon, on December the 24th, resulting in the Space Fortress falling in the Federation hands and a good chunk of the Zion forces being able to retreat thanks to the heroic sacrifice of Dovzol Zabi and the Big Zam, a role the Dolmel could have perfectly taken over had it been completed in time. The Dolmel would however be quickly completed after this regrettable event, right in time for the advent of Operation Star One, the new massive Federation offensive planning to meet at front the bulk of the remaining Principality forces at Abawaku and then continue on the Zion homeland to claim final victory. With Abawaku now becoming the sole decisive battle to win, the Dolmel tactical usability was now narrowed to only serve as a tactical asset for this incoming space battle, a role many other Zion weapons would be reassigned to or retrofitted for. In terms of production, it is unknown how many Dolmels were exactly produced, with most sources confirming that at least 2 of these Phantom machines were rolled out, one in the standard red-orange colors and assigned to Ramuiko Stein, while the other painted in blue and gold colors, allegedly remaining in storage far from the Federation site. During the Battle of Abawaku, Ramuiko and her Dolmel would then be assigned to the Super Carrier Dolos, but would eventually be deployed not as a support for its new mothership, or even to tear a new hole in the Federation forces, but instead to meet head-on and deal with a new arriving threat that joined the fight on the Federation side, aka the RX-7802 Gundam and its infamous pilot Amuro Rei. There, Amuro and Ramuiko would engage in a lengthy and uncompromising duel, but despite the Dolmel technological edge over the aging G02 and Ramuiko's abilities, Amuro piloting skills and new type abilities would prove to be simply too much, with the Gundam eventually shooting down the Dolmel Unit 1. Ramuiko got enough time to collect her thoughts and congratulate the victor before her mobile suit exploded, leaving no survivor aside Amuro Rei to ever identify her mysterious mobile suit. Following the conclusion of the Battle of Abawaku, the one-year war eventually came to an end, with the Dolmel very own existence seemingly expunged from records, falling into complete oblivion, be it in the eyes of the Zion remnants, but also of the Federation public, with the Federation Intelligence Bureau allegedly keeping its existence as a top-secret classified information. The brief existence of the Dolmel would only resurface around 15 years after the conclusion of the war, around UC 95, where Federation Intelligence would release to the public a photo of Ramuiko's unit causing mayhem during the Battle of Abawaku, finally declassifying the Dolmel's entire case. But let's go back to mid-December UC 79, even before the regular Dolmel on release. While the Abawaku's arsenal was busy working on completing the baseline MS-19 Dolmel, the Granada arsenal, under the direction of Professor Terence Ritzman, soon became entangled in a causing development plan, with the Granada team starting working on a different entry to the MS-19 line, the N-type MS-19, a new type-use mobile suit codenamed MS-19N Katarl. Now, the Katarl is a machine similarly shrouded in mystery, with multiple sources mentioning its possible existence aside the Dolmel, although it only ever was depicted in the manga Outer Gundam, a work which is often considered an alternative depiction of the late One-Year War events, and as such a sort of light alternative UC timeline. In such work, the Katarl is depicted as a stealth new type-use mobile suit, a machine with direct ties to the in-construction Dolmel, as shown through its head design, but designed for a different tactical use, mainly space superiority through all-range attacks and its new infiltration assets. First of all, the Outer Gundam's Katarl was a machine with state-of-the-art stealth abilities, being coated in a black matte paint, greatly reducing its visibility in outer space, while also equipping an advanced thermal reducing device, capable of reducing its heat signature to such degree that it would become invisible to any kind of heat detection, while also evading most optic targeting devices. Such cloaking abilities were only matched by the Katarl's incredible firepower, with the unit mounting a pair of 3 beam guns per shoulder, one in its mouth, a pair of head-mounted Vulcans, a beam blade emitter, but most importantly a pair of binder bits on its back, enabling the Katarl new type pilot to perform all range attacks. Ice on the cake, the Katarl also came packing with extraordinary defensive abilities, mounting a early anti-beam armor capable of tanking some beam-based attacks. In terms of downsides, the Katarl however had issues when it came to heat accumulation, forcing it to leave its stealth mode, called submersion mode, to be able to use any weapon of its arsenal. In Outer Gundam, the Katarl was seemingly completed a bit earlier than the regular Dolmel, being deployed on a secret mission during the Battle of Solomon, completely taking the Federation forces by surprise. Unfortunately, the solar system fire would end up revealing its presence despite the stealth mode, leading to a duel between it and the protagonist's mobile suit of Outer Gundam, the Zephyr Gundam, resulting in a mutual kill between both mobile suits, but where the Katarl pilot was nonetheless spared, courtesy of the Zephyr Awakened AI. Now, to sum things up, did the Katarl ever exist in mainline UC? Yes, very much likely, as we know there was indeed a MS-19 Katarl linked to the Dolmel, as stated by sources outside of Outer Gundam. Now, was it exactly or as advanced as the Katarl seen in Outer Gundam? In all fairness, it's also important to mention that Outer Gundam is a work from between 1988 and 1992, aka 2 years before the proper introduction of the Dolmel and X review. This means that even if newer Dolmel's entries have since then mentioned the Katarl, the Dolmel was more likely inspired by the pre-existing Katarl design than the other way around, that the Katarl used the MS-19 codename because it was available at that time, rather than trying to be a new type-use version of the then non-existing Dolmel. But let's go back to a less conspicuous machine. Although Ramuiko and the Dolmel were indeed destroyed at Abawaku, the second Dolmel, the blue-colored Unit 2, still managed to survive the war, eventually falling in the hands of Lord Spada, aka Richard Grayson, the chairman of the Federal European Chamber of Commerce, and the number 2 of True Federal, a political armed force born in response to the Federation government censuring the disaster of the Konpei Naval Review of UC-93. Grayson would take the second Dolmel as his personal mobile suit, and would end up after some time upgrading it into a more federalized version of it, the MS-19C Dolmel Due. In terms of outside frame, the Dolmel Due remained identical to its previous Dolmel form, with the only main change being a swap of its camera system, ditching the Xeon-style mono-eye camera for a Gundam-esque twin-eye camera system. In terms of internal modifications, the Dolmel Due however introduced a game-changing new asset placed in its head, a telepathic AI system called Yoto, which was capable of retransmitting waves emulating those of Ito Tsurugi, waves with the special property of latently awakening new types, piloting mobile suits equipped with such AI. Richard Grayson would however eventually double-cross his old mentor Kanesada Tsurugi for the control of True Federal, and although Kanesada would later reclaim his place and forgive Grayson, he would condemn the man to undergo terrifying enhancing procedures, turning Grayson into a sort of cyber new type. A driven mad and delusional Grayson, alongside his faithful Dolmel Due, would later take their revenge on Kanesada, but would finally be vanquished by Yoto's original template, Ito Tsurugi himself. With the Dolmel Due destruction, fell both True Federal and their rivals BGST, paving the way for the Titans to rise in a newly cleansed federal political sphere. Before this video comes to an end, I will mention that a particular MS-19E Hawkeye was once introduced by Katsuhisa Kondo in his work The Dog of War 0092, released around 1988, although this mobile suit shouldn't be mistaken with any kind of Dolmel variant whatsoever. Outlaw, the Hawkeye appeared a few years before the Dolmel even existed, which was in 94 for X Review, and in lore the Hawkeye is a seemingly bastard suit between Isaac, Giradoga, Isaac, and with high mobility type Sakomuzaku parts, being presented as a scrap reconnaissance mobile suit deployed by newborn Neo Zeon, sometimes even branded as AMS-119E. The use of the codename MS-19 likely comes from Kondo's own codename for the Isaac, which is MS-20, so no, it's not related to the Dolmel. With this video comes to an end. Marco and Code out.
But who will survive?